Hey, what's going on? It's Asher from Conscious Creators, and today I'm actually going to walk you through one of the how we set up and how we do our fulfillment mantras. So our fulfillment mantras focus on one of what we call fundamental human needs. So there's intimacy, security, connection, creative expression, reflection, sensation. There's a couple more, but basically each one of these fundamental needs is kind of like a part of love. So we've broken down love into 9 fundamental needs, and the purpose of these mantras is to feed our brain commands so that we actively are setting forth and creating experiences that fulfill these fundamental needs. And what this does is it changes the brain's, so our brains are kind of patterned to focus on and obsess over what we don't want, and we try to control what we don't want. We try to resist what we don't want or deflect what we don't want. But either way, it's like this thing over here that we know we don't want, and we spend our lives kind of trying not to experience it or not to indulge in it, whether it's an addiction or an abusive relationship or a job we can't stand. These are all habit patterns that we've created. And oftentimes these habit patterns are literally born out of moments of decision made by 3 and 4-year-old children. So oftentimes people die, actually every day people die as a result of living out these habit patterns for decades that were made in responses to trauma, and they were made by children who were like 3 and 4 years old. So it's really kind of a heartbreaking part of the human condition. So this kind of cracks the code on that. This brings our brain out of focusing on the pile of dog shit we don't want to step on, or the president that we're trying to resist, the hate we are trying to resist. It brings us out of focusing and obsessing on resisting hate, and it brings us over here to embracing love, to embracing possibility, to embracing something that's truly moves and inspires us and it fulfills us on a fundamental level. So once our fundamental needs are met, we are no longer squandering all of these natural resources and wasting our own human potential, just trying to distract ourselves from the feeling we have inside, this void of incompletion. We have this growing void of incompletion because we have become disconnected from our true essence, our true connection to ourselves and the connection to the truth in others. So I'm going to walk you through, this is the need, this is the 4th fundamental need. It's the need for intimacy. And this is a close, familiar relationship with a person or a group. Now, this is not like a physical, sexual type of intimacy or a passionate intimacy. This is just intimacy. This is vulnerability. This is me being vulnerable and being able to connect and allow you to see me as I am, not as I want you to see me on Instagram. It's not projecting an image. It's just being okay with who I am and where I'm at in my own unfoldment, in my own progression as a human being. So, and these follow a similar format, so I'm just going to run you through it. So the goal of this particular mantra is to introduce the brain to the idea of intimacy, number 1, and then specific concrete steps that it can take on a daily basis to achieve that aim of fulfilling the need for intimacy. Okay, so here we go. I accept that I am capable and worthy of fulfilling the need for intimacy by responding to my experiences with sincerity and vulnerability. I accept that I can fulfill the need for intimacy by responding to my experiences with sincerity and vulnerability. I accept that I will fulfill the need for intimacy by responding to my experiences with sincerity and vulnerability. I just love actively fulfilling the need for intimacy rather than passively neglecting the need for intimacy. Rather than passively neglect the need for intimacy, I just love actively fulfilling the need for intimacy. I just love actively fulfilling the need for intimacy by responding to my experiences with sincerity and vulnerability. I choose to continue actively fulfilling the need for intimacy by responding to my experiences with sincerity and vulnerability. I am continuing to actively fulfill the need for intimacy by responding to my experiences with sincerity and vulnerability. And then we're going to move into the prayer part where we actually invite collective consciousness to support us in our desire. We have this desire to fulfill the need for intimacy. And what we're doing right now is we're feeding our unconscious these mantras, and we're actually demonstrating willingness to back up this desire that we have, okay? And so when we invite collective consciousness, in Conscious Creators, we don't have a singular God. We call it GPS. It's a greater perspective than self. It's a greater power than self. So GPS, just kind of like an onboard guidance navigation system on your phone when you're running around town. This is our GPS. It's a greater perspective than self. It's the spiritual insights. It's conscious insights that we can tap into and view any situation from a different perspective, from a spiritual perspective. So my particular GPS, I call it collective consciousness. So when I am praying to collective consciousness, I am praying to all higher powers, all deities, all saints and gurus ever. So here's how that goes. So collective consciousness, I pray to you, I pray to Jesus and Allah and Buddha and Krishna. I pray to God. I pray to all higher powers and deities, all saints and gurus, past, present, and future. I pray that you help me to continue to respond to my experiences with sincerity and vulnerability so that I may continue to actively fulfill my need for intimacy. Once again, please continue to help me respond to my experiences with sincerity and vulnerability so that I may continue to actively fulfill the need for intimacy. And finally, thank you so much today for helping me to continue to respond to my experiences with sincerity and vulnerability so that I may continue to actively fulfill fundamental human needs. And there's a couple of distinctions that happen with these mantras. If you noticed, I said in the first prayer, I asked collective consciousness to help support me in fulfilling my fundamental need for intimacy. And then I backed that up with the same request, asking that collective consciousness support me in fulfilling the need. So that basically is telling you that when I fulfill the need for intimacy by responding to my experiences with sincerity and vulnerability, as opposed to reacting to my experiences with anger and rage, which is an old survival pattern of mine, when I do that, the person that I'm responding to is now given the opportunity to respond in kind. So when I'm fulfilling my need for intimacy by responding with vulnerability, with responding with love, I basically get to give this other person the opportunity to respond. So by fulfilling my need for intimacy, I'm giving the world that I'm interacting with an opportunity to also fulfill the need for intimacy. And then I follow that up by saying, thank you. Thank you so much for helping me to fulfill all of these fundamental needs, for even helping me to maintain a perspective necessary to focus on these needs. We don't really realize how lucky we are in 2020 right now. All the ditches and the infrastructure, all the roads, all this gnarly stuff that's already been built. We have electricity. Our creature comforts are met. We have luxuries at our disposals. We have a moment to catch our breath. And we can start to ponder these needs of a more fundamental nature, needs beyond survival. We're not in survival mode currently. Most of us aren't. And when we are in survival mode, which many of us can relate with, we've had times when we've been down and out, or we've just tried to find our next meal. And when we're in those places, these fundamental needs beyond survival are like irrelevant. They don't even exist. So the fact that we can actually take a day and have our brain focus on intimacy, on responding with sincerity and vulnerability, it's an incredible gift that's been afforded us. So I just wanted to share a little bit of our Conscious Creators process with you. I also wanted to invite you this tomorrow over at Pathfinders Alano Club, which is located at 3367 Glendale Boulevard. in Atwater Village. The zip code is 90039. I wanted to invite you to our, we have alignment discussions. They're free. And tomorrow's going to be at 8:30 in the morning, and we're going to be discussing resetting the unconscious. It's a section from our Conscious Creator book. We're beta testing it right now. We're actively editing it, but the final book will be out in about 3 months. So this is just a small section that I want to share with you now. Through meditation, we connect to the consciousness of our being. In time, we grow to rely upon the insights of this greater perspective. While meditation is a tool to intuitively connect, our mantras reset our unconscious. This is important. For many, especially middle-aged and older adults, these mantras are a matter of life and death. If we need a spiritual perspective to continue co-creating with consciousness, then our minds must be open and receptive. Older minds tend to be anything but open and receptive. They are usually quite fearful and reactive. So long as these minds remain in this state, there will be no connection to a greater power than self. This lack of power beyond self causes every possible ailment known to man. The medical community calls it the effects of stress. They say stress is bad for you. What they don't say is that lack of connection kills. Well, we are here to let you know that lack of connection to consciousness and one another kills. This process arrests the deadly progression of our self-defeating habit patterns. We are the only person or power on earth capable of arresting this progressive and deadly condition of unconscious creation. We are the only power that can actively sit down with our own minds and give it new commands and create new neural pathways. We're the only ones that are going to do it for us. A pill can't do it for us. A therapist can't do it for us. A sponsor can't do it for us. We have to actually have the courage to acknowledge self-defeating habit patterns, survival patterns that we created in our youth to navigate tricky, often overwhelming situations. And we need to have the courage to identify those habit patterns, acknowledge them, share their effects with others, and then basically set forth to create life-affirming possibilities, new patterns, and then set forth on a daily basis to install and implant these new patterns, much like a new operating system. So many of us have obsolete operating systems that's causing us to create our experiences based on past traumas, and all we're getting is what do you call it? When Trojans and viruses, we're getting all kinds of corruption. The hard drive's getting corrupted. So this basically this is like a way for us to consciously download a new operating system so we can energetically connect with our life, with our reality in a new and interesting way. So I invite you to join the discussion, come to a Conscious Creators meeting, and begin to take your brain on a journey. Allow yourself to take your brain and your mind new places. Don't allow your brain to take you down dark alleyways into fateful confrontations with others. That's an old played out tape. There's other experiences available for you on earth if you choose to accept those possibilities. And I invite you to do so. So thank you and have a beautiful day.